speaking of conservatives, we need to start talking about what conservatives can do to start getting control of the narrative surrounding mass shootings, because they keep happening in America, and the conservatives have no good answer to anything that the left is saying. And the left is constantly on the attack, and the conservatives are the ones who should be on the attack, because I think that these mass shootings are a consequence of the atomization of society that is being caused by left-wing policies. So before we start, this is something I'd like to promote, which is on lotus.com. It's an amazing premium video that Harry did on how to be a conservative environmentalist. And the reason this ties in is because it is yet another ground that the conservatives have ceded to the left. The left are like, oh, we need renewable energy, we need all this. It's like, okay, maybe, but do the conservatives have any positive thoughts on what we should be doing about the environment, what we should be doing about mass shootings, but blah, 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 whatever it is? Well, the conservatives are just constantly on the retreat.
There are some who talk of nuclear and all the rest of it, and
yes,
actual sensible policies, but then that's not what happens in the manifesto. No.
And it's a tepid and weak way of approaching anything. What they need to be doing is start actually demanding things. We want this. We want that. And so this is where I think we should be going with this as conservatives talking about this. So let's begin with just an African proverb, right? There's apparently an old African proverb that goes along the lines of, the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Now, I don't know whether that's a real proverb or not, but it doesn't matter, because I think that is true. I think that's why these mass shootings are happening. I think it is particularly young people who are totally disenfranchised, have no love of the communities they're meant to be within, and therefore don't care, feel resentful, and attack them as a means of revenge for being rejected. And I hate to tell you this, but I think that this attack in Texas is actually a really good example of that. I think this really underscores the point. Now, didn't just jump on this the moment it happened, because we waited for the information to come out, but it looks like a lot of information has come out that does substantiate this point. So as we begin, who are we talking about? Now, you can hear the great cringe of disappointment from the left when it was turned out the young man was called Salvador Ramos.
I don't know, could still be white.
No, he's not, he's Mexican.
No, I mean, according to the left.
No, he's Mexican.
No, he could have a MAGA hat and then he'd be white.
He's still Mexican. He went on a shooting on May the 24th, killed 18 children and 3 adults, and was also killed himself by law enforcement. He also shot his grandmother before entering the school, but she didn't die from the wound, thank goodness. And if we go to the next one, CNN have got more detailed profile on him. They say he legally purchased 2 AR-15 AR platform rifles, sorry. I don't know anything about guns either, but then the CNN. But he purchased them legally.
It's a fully semi-automatic.
It's a machine gun, Callum. They're illegal, don't worry, they're just jokes. But the point is, he bought these guns legally because he didn't have a criminal record and he was entitled to purchase them. And so the main objection is, well, he shouldn't have been able to purchase guns. It's like, well, look, why did he want to kill people? Isn't that more important? Because, and this is going to come as a real shock to Democrats, guns aren't the only thing that people can use to kill each other.
No, there's a lot of new ways.
There are a lot of old ways too, which we'll cover in a minute.
Cars, trucks, knives.
Yes.
There's a lot of new ways that people kill a lot of people.
Yes, and like I said, a lot of old ways too. And so they complained that he had no problem accessing those weapons. It's like, yes, because I tell you what, if there's one thing that I would like in a civilization that is clearly going down the tubes, is to have all the guns removed, and so I had way fewer options to defend myself. That'd make me feel better.
But that's why I mentioned the cars and the trucks being a new thing that terrorists use, for example, to get attention. Because that's what this is. You're trying to kill as many people as possible to get attention, right? Yes. And this is why I say the cars, because you never get someone saying, after we had the terrorist attacks from the Muslims running people down in cars and whatnot, well, we need common sense car control.
Well, that'd be nonsense, that's why.
Exactly. But that's the
because
point.
It's not the problem. It's the issue is the person. And I think that really what they're trying to do is get revenge on the society that has scorned them or disappointed them or failed them in some way. I think that's what this is about. But anyway, see, he began his shooting spree by shooting his grandmother first, but she survived and called the cops. He crashed his vehicle into a ditch near the elementary school, emerged with a rifle and backpack while wearing a tactical vest that hold extra ammunition, went into the school through the back door. A school resource officer engaged him, but no shots were fired. He dropped a full bag of ammunition outside of the school during the encounter and ran inside. He then barricaded himself in a classroom and with an adjoining classroom and opened fire at those inside. There were 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed in these rooms, according to the police. And so, who was he then? What was the reason that he would do all this? Like what? Because the names of the victims are also all Mexican. This is a very Mexican area of Texas where a Mexican man has walked into a Mexican majority school and shot a bunch of Mexicans. Why has he done this? White supremacy? No. That narrative died swiftly, didn't it? You know. So anyway, they've got some interviews with various people. According to people at the local high school, he lived with his grandparents, he had no friends and no criminal history or no gang affiliation. He worked a day shift at local Wendy's and mostly kept to himself, the restaurant's manager confirmed. So he's a total loner. He's on his own. A former classmate of him said he would get severely bullied and made fun of a lot, and taunted by others for the clothes he wore and his family's financial situation. People would actually call him the school shooter and stuff like that. So cruelty from his classmates seems to be one driving motivation, right? He's got no connection to any of the community around him. He's on his own. The people in his peer group seem to hate him, and they're openly cruel to him. This is something that conservatives might want to start, I don't know, talking about. Like, the conservative worldview should be based in the relationships we have with one another. If someone has no relationships, and the only way they interact with other people is them being horrible and cruel to them, maybe that's something conservatives might actually want to talk about. The tone and tenor of the way that our society is run, which would also destroy a lot of the left on this, because they're really fucking awful.
I've always wondered.
Horrible.
Like, why on earth? Because, like, you have bullying everywhere, of course, but to be a bully in the United States seems like the silliest thing.
The normalest thing as well.
Well, no, it's just the fact of, like, well, this school shooter actually might be real as
Yes.
well. Like, the joke about it is not just a joke in the United States.
Yeah, it's a cultural pathology in the United States, unfortunately. He had one friend who he'd lost sort of contact with, before this had happened. But apparently they'd sat together through high school and played Xbox, but he stopped attending school regularly and they communicated less and less. Before it happened, though, he sent his classmate a picture of an AR-15, and this guy was like, why do you have to do this? And he's like, don't worry about it. I look very different now. You wouldn't recognize me. So it seems that he set his mind on revenge, frankly. Another person at the high school said he was a very quiet person who hung out by himself. She said, another one says she knew people didn't like him. People would make fun of him or want to fight him. According to a video obtained by CNN, he had a history of physically fighting with others. Former friend and classmate sent him a video on Snapchat depicting him fighting with someone else, which apparently was not out of the ordinary. So he's totally unsocialized. He's hated by his classmates. He's constantly being physically bullied by them. Honestly, could you, with your hand on your heart, say that if you were in that position, you wouldn't have evil thoughts?
No, of course not.
Exactly. That's the point. This is what the Conservatives should be really starting to lay their hand on, saying, now, hang on a second. There's something wrong in the society itself. We have to have a way of socializing people to love the people that they're around. Because in countries where people love, where the other people around them have genuine sentiment and affection for them, that doesn't happen. And if you're constantly bullied and ostracized by your friends and classmates, how could you ever develop such sentiments? This is what conservatives really need to start thinking about. So just to quickly carry on, it's being alleged that he was transgender. There's no evidence he was transgender. There's a picture of a person who looks like him going around, but the person who that is actually a picture of says, it's not me, I don't even live in Texas, they just took my photos and used it to spread misinformation, which seems to be true. It seems that he was also known to the police, as the post-millennial report. He would get bullied hard, like bullied by a lot of people over social media, over gaming, over everything. He was the nicest, most shyest kid. He just needed to break out of his shell. A former classmate also said, who was somewhat close, who played Xbox, said that his mother used drugs and contributed to upheaval in the home. Anything about drug use that conservatives want to chime in with here? Seems like he was single mother. Anything that conservatives think they might have to put together on all of this?
This is something Zuby mentioned to me when we were talking about Saudi Arabia. The fact that in the United States, drug use just seems to be a thing, and therefore you have all these mental people. Like, you have serious mental illness problems, and it seems to be the drugs, frankly. Like, you don't get that kind of level elsewhere. Yeah. Especially in Arab countries. The
total normalization of doing drugs in America. And I'm not saying that drugs are bad in every case, in all times, in all places. But if someone is regularly using drugs, and she's a single mother of a boy who's being constantly bullied at school with no friends at all, or basically no friends, like what do you think's going to happen? Like, what kind of attitude do you think that kid's going to come out with? Do you think he's going to think, oh yeah, I can't wait to get up and go to school today. I can't wait to go to my job at Wendy's. It's like, honestly. And the thing is, it's not like the police don't have a burden to bear here. Apparently, they failed to stop him for over an hour. Like, this is mad. If you can go to the next one. This is just a summary by Phil That Remains. Good guy. Shout out to him. The shooter went, but he's citing a Daily Mail article where it's just like the shooter went in the classroom, locked the door. Police left him on the scene for an hour until they got a member of school staff to unlock it with a key. It's like, really? You couldn't have broken that down? Couldn't have shut him through a window? Couldn't have done something?
I don't know the circumstances, but yeah, that seems bad.
I know. It looks terrible, doesn't it? Anyway, moving on. What do you think AOC had to say about this?
No, ban the Second Amendment.
Well, of course.
He's not white, so that's the other thing they go to, isn't it?
Have you not got the AOC link?
Okay. But it's just that's always like it always seems to be a recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if they're white supremacy. If they're Syrian, white supremacy somehow.
Well, yeah, exactly. If they're Mexican, white supremacy.
Oh right, okay. See, this is what I meant.
Oh, obviously she wants all the guns banned. But obviously she's like, look, I'm committed to the idea that white men are the main killers. It's like, well, this
Mexicans
guy wasn't
white.
Yeah.
She's white.
Yeah, exactly. This guy wasn't a white man, and it's not because of any kind of ideological commitment to white supremacy.
Hang on, wait, yeah, because if he's white as well, according to her, he's also shooting other white people.
Yeah, exactly. It's obvious nonsense. What it is a totally disconnected young man from the civilization in which he finds himself, and he's treated evilly by it. And so he decides to take an evil revenge on it. But I mean, she's like, oh, white supremacists commit the vast majority of domestic terrorism by far. It's not even close. Look at the numbers. Will Twitter deal with this misinformation that she's putting out? Because we have the numbers. I don't know why she'd say this. We can just go to massshootings.info and see what the statistics are. For example, in 2021, out of 636 mass shootings, and a mass shooting is every person convicted, charged, or wanted in connection with the shooting of 4+ people who died or who died before they could be charged, right? 409 of them, they're a no known suspect, because what sort of communities do you think they happened in? Ones that aren't very favourable to the police, maybe?
Snitches get stitches.
But of the remainder, Sasha Johnson, 74% are black, 12% are Latino, 12% are white, and 2% are Asian. She's just lying. She's a total liar. And she's just allowed to get away with it. But anyway, let's move on to the next, a good take on this.
I suppose if he's Mexican and he's white, he's part of that 12% as well.
He's not white. He's Latino.
Yeah, of course, but we're in fantasy AOC land. Like, is she going to start demanding that the black guys are also white in this circumstance?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't she? Yeah. They're fighting to uphold white supremacy or something. But anyway, Larry Elder had a good take on this. He was just like, look, 19 kids, 2 teachers have been killed in a shooting in an elementary school. Does not appear the alleged shooter is a white supremacist. Biden media post-Buffalo will definitely switch from angry white man to easy access to guns. Whoa. How did you know, Larry? How did you know? It's just because they do this every single time. And again,
freaking NPC.
Conservatives are just on the defense here. It's like, no, you say break down a family, break down a family, break down a family. You go on the offensive. Single drug addict mother, bullied kid in his society, breakdown of family and social structures. That's what caused this. It's not guns. And we know this, right? Because we've got an account from the past where people actually lived in a goddamn society, right? This is just an old chap on Twitter, right? When my father was a boy, you could buy a machine gun with a license, without a license. If you had enough money, you were big enough to put it on the counter. He was given his first gun at the age of 8. You know how many school shootings we had back then? None. It's the culture, not the guns. It is absolutely the culture. It's without a doubt. It's because they don't care about the people around them. They don't have any love for their own communities. That's why the person who commits this does this. The Washington Post, I think it is, will just complain endlessly, go, this is 10 years of failure of gun control. And from the CNN...
Shut up, Bezos.
Yeah, exactly. Shut up, Bezos shills. And from the CNN live feed, apparently in 2022, there have been more days than mass shootings. So unless you want the left to take away your ability to defend yourself, conservatives, you're going to have to spin together a pretty convincing narrative of why this keeps happening. And this is actually quite an instructive lesson, I think. But again, like going back to the Columbine shootings, like it's always the same. It's a disaffected young man who's got no connection to the people that he's attacking, no love of the country that he's in. And the left has done everything they can to make people disenfranchised from the world they live in. And it's just awful. But anyway, let's go forward. Biden gave a speech on this in which, of course, he was just like,
guns.
Republicans and their guns did this. Yeah. Thanks. For some reason, Zelensky decided to chime in. It's like, really, Zelensky, don't you have something more important to do? No more pressing issue?
Yes, Biden, ban those guns and then give them to us.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably that's the argument.
Yeah. The Spanish Prime Minister said, this everyday horror must stop in the US. So, well, how's that going to happen?
Oh, shut up, Spaniard.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. We're not taking any lectures from anyone on the Axis.
Yeah. And, yeah. Obama, though, was like, Michelle and I grieve the families in Uvalde who are experiencing pain no one should have to bear. We're also angry for them. Nearly 10 years after Sandy Hook and 10 days after Buffalo, our country is paralyzed, not by fear, but by a gun lobby and political party that show no willingness to act in any way that might help prevent these tragedies. So, look, it's not just like the guns. You know, the guns aren't the things that are picking themselves up. I hate to say it, it's such a tired narrative, but it's not the gun problem. Because, I mean, like, it's not like the rest of the world doesn't have guns. I don't know why Obama thinks, the guns just exist in America and nowhere else. If we go to the next way, you can see gun ownership per capita. Now, I'm not denying that America has more guns per capita, because America does have a very, very vibrant gun culture. But if you can go down to the list...
also, you can look at that state there, where you just have, like, New York, massive gun crime, and it has the least guns in America.
Yeah. No, in fact, go back to that. Yeah. California and New York, how do you think the gun crime matches up in there with gun ownership? You know, it's mad. How is it in the Midwest, where, look at that dark blue bit, what's that in there? Republicans.
The Joe Biden sniffing state over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Endless gun crime, I hear.
Anyway, if you go down to the list, right, you can see there are loads of countries where, like, they have loads of guns, and yet they don't still have these problems. You know, Canada's got 34 guns per 100 people. That's literally millions of guns. Literally something like 2 million Canadians own guns.
Makes you proud.
Yes, it does. But they're not shooting each other. Why? Because they don't allow this kind of extreme bullying. They're not, well, I mean, they're probably getting there actually at this point because they're becoming more and more leftist. But anyway, just to cap this off, and of course, even if you banned guns, you think that's going to just prevent
the end of violence, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. No one drives cars.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, no one knows how to make bombs. I mean, the worst massacre that ever happened in America was the Bath School Massacre in 1927.
Not heard of this one.
No. Guy called Andrew Cahoe was the school board treasurer, was angered by increased taxes and his defeat in the election for township clerk. And so,
hang on, is this literally... they tried to tax me? That was his motive.
I think the defeat in the election is probably more.
Okay.
He seems to have planned his murderous revenge.
I was going to say, I don't think the school's responsible for that one.
No, it seems to be a defeat. But he made a bomb, put it in the school, killed 38 children, 6 adults, and injured 58 other people.
Suicide truck bomb.
He'd also murdered his wife prior to it as well.
She tried to make me pay taxes.
Anyway, did it stop the Waukesha Christmas parade massacre?
No. Also,
nope.
A new tactic that he presumably learnt from looking at Europe.
From ISIS.
Yep.
Black nationalist plows into a parade of white people because he hates white people.
Biden didn't go to that one.
Nope.
Didn't give a speech there.
Nope. Didn't mention it. And of course, if you go to Britain, where we have 4 guns per 100 people, we get lots of terrorism.
Yeah.
Such as the 2018 Westminster car attack, the Manchester Victoria stabbing.
So you should probably mention a little bit as well. Like, they drive the car into the people, then get out with their knives.
Yeah, and then stab people, yeah.
Yeah.
So more people are dead. The London Bridge stabbing in 2019.
Particularly horrible because they drive a van on a bridge, which means you literally can't get off without jumping into the river. And then, like, 3 guys got out with their machetes and just started chopping people up.
Yep.
And there's no response for ages because no one has any guns.
Yep.
The SAS have to be called.
Yes. The Streatham stabbing that happened recently, and Reading stabbings as well.
Yeah.
Just again, these are just some of the things. I mean, I could have gone on, but I didn't.
You're just lucky in these cases because this one, he just gave himself up after killing all the gay people.
Yeah. He stabbed 3 gay people in a park because you need guns to kill people, Callum. But anyway, the point being is that all of these people are attempting to take some kind of revenge on a society that they feel has failed them. Now, when it comes to the Islamists, I don't agree with them, and I don't think they should be in this country. But when it comes to a Mexican teenager who is in a Mexican community in Texas and is bullied and totally ostracized, I can't help but feel it's not really his fault that he has at least, got this very, very bitter attitude to the world. Now, of course, him going on a shooting is obviously his fault. But the point is conservatives need to start identifying that it is this social breakdown that is causing the spate of mass murders in America, in my opinion.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content on the site, such as the Politics of Four Lions premium video between John and Carl. And if you want to follow what else John's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at John Wheatley on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.